Hey everyone, welcome to I Just Watched. I'm Joseph, and we're discussing Black Panther Wakanda Forever Spoiler Discussion. Fair warning. Before we jump into it, I gotta hit you with the usual, which is hope you like this enough to smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the little bell to get notified. That out the way, let's get into it. If you follow me on TikTok, I had posted a video apologizing because I had pretty much uploaded my spoiler discussion. I just didn't release it because I watched it and I was like, no, I need to watch the movie again and take a bit of a deeper dive, so to speak, into it. So that's what we're doing right off the bat, just to get it out the way. You should know how I feel about the movie. So if you don't, you have to go watch the spoiler-free review. Coogler, with all his greatness as a director and stuff and what he's been doing, he still needs to work on his CG because rewatching it, some parts are okay, some parts are meh, and some parts are really bad. I think it's progressed since Black Panther, but it could definitely be better. The cold open with Shuri and how she's speaking to Boss and praying that if Boss helps her, she'll never question him again to save her brother was powerful. It was sad. The movie starts and you don't even know it. You know, you just recognize her voice and you're like, oh shit, this is how we're starting. Plus the way it leads into the silent Marvel title intro, and you just see Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa. You see the T'Challa pieces through the lettering, and it's just silent. Definitely lets you know how this movie's gonna start, how it's gonna be an emotional ride. We jump to the UN meeting with Queen Ramonda. So there's two moments where Angela Bassett absolutely without question it steals the show. She is powerful. Her presence as the queen is amazing. Starting with the UN speech. Wow. I love the way she nailed it, the way she provided, and then the way they mixed in the fact that you see the fight taking place. You don't know it's happening at the same time. And then you see him walk in with the mercenaries and be like, here's your trash. Here's your basura. Come at us again. And we clap him back in a big way. Right now we're trying to be as reasonable as possible, but don't take it for weakness. Director Valentina is in this movie. I think this is the most we've gotten from her. It was a little throwaway that she was married to Ross, which is whatever. I'm glad he came back because I like him as an actor and I like his character. But they were married. Doesn't really do anything other than give us a few jokes here and there that were alright. Val seems to be the new director of the CIA, which is 100% could probably be the exact thing, but something in me tells me it's something more. It's either the new shield or some, sword or some sub thing that's going on, because there's a few other organizations it could be. It definitely, obviously, like in the movies, like, Central Intelligence Agency, which it could be, but the fact that she's been recruiting these cats and we're getting Thunderbolts makes me think it's going to be more than the CIA. I really like the way her and Shuri, when they meet, have this immediate respect for one another because they both understand how just intelligent they are. When she's like, you built that in months? She's like, yeah, it was for class. Just this immediate connection that they have. And I thought that was really cool, and the way it portrays itself through the movie was really great. And I like the bond they formed. We know, or they said, Ironheart, her series is supposed to be a direct continuation to this. So I don't think we see Shuri. We might hear her in a phone call, maybe through Komoyo Beads. The second, and I think this is without question the more powerful of the two, and probably most powerful, or one of the most powerful moments in the whole movie, Angela Bassett with the speech in the throne room when she's stripping Okoye of her titles and turning her back into a civilian, and Queen Ramonda delivers it. She's like, have I not given everything? I am the queen of the most powerful nation on earth. Husband is dead, he's gone. My son is dead, he's gone. My daughter is gone. The ruler of the most powerful nation in existence right now, and my family's gone. I was fucking like, oh my god, boy. And then the whole council was like, every time I've seen this movie and that speech comes on, I'm just like, hits me hard. So when we actually finally go to Haiti, because that's where Nakia is at, and I didn't catch it my first watch. It was my second watch where I actually caught it. When Queen Ramonda walks in, you see the kids playing, and 3 kids walk up on her. But the one who speaks is actually baby T'Challa, T'Challa's son. Because he immediately recognized her. He goes, oh, you're looking for the headmistress? And she's like, yes. And he takes her there. That just confirmed, because earlier when she's in the bush with Shuri, she's like, there's something about your brother I need to tell you. Been known. She's been involved in this. And I love the way they snuck that in. And we jump to the birth of the Talocanians. We find out that, yes, 1571, Spaniard conquistadors, smallpox disease, ravishing Mesoamerica. Bing, bang, boom. They turn blue. They get gills. We go to the water. I like the way that they introduced it and the way they push it, and the fact that, of course, they use Shak, god of rain and abundance, because I first was against it because I was like, yo, we don't have no Mesoamerican deities of the ocean. It's rain, and I think there's one of like lakes, if I remember correctly, but I say that because, yes, I was against it, but I think the way Kugler did the amalgamation of all of these mixtures of Mesoamerican culture, I think he did such a great job with it. He comes back to bury his mother after he made the promise, and you see the Spaniards enslaving the Mesoamerican. The way he gets his name, Namor, because it will forever be Namor. No Namor, No Namor, Namor. Throw that accent on there, baby, because I love the fact that he's un niño sin amor, a child without love. And he goes, that's how I took my name. My enemies call me Namor because I have no love for the surface world. He is a born mutant, and he says it. I'm a mutant. He has his ears, wings on his ankles. The fact that they call him Kang, the feather serpent god, I think that's interesting just to kind of see how his people see him, which they even talk about in the movie. They see him not as a king, not as a general, as a god, which I also think is going to lead into the future of Namor. Talocan. And what is it? It's like an undertow highway. What was it that Crush was on in Finding Nemo? I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically what it was. And I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. Also was kind of curious to why they have them, because they can all swim extremely fast or have sea life. It kind of felt like that was there specifically for guests, but they never bring guests until Shuri being the first one. Or maybe he lied and she's not the first one. Genuinely curious on how the blip, the snapping affected them. Is that maybe why they had to move? I don't think so. I think the reason they had to move was the earthquake in the middle of the ocean we got in movies way back when. I don't remember which one it was. I apologize. I remember it was like on screen. It was like in the middle of the ocean. There was like a dot. I also want to see more of Talocan. I want to venture into the city, which I assume will get a future Namor solo movie. Mbaku, Winston Duke, steals every scene he's in. He is just so charismatic. And it's funny because even in moments when it's tragic, it's sad. Like when he first walks in and he's having his dialogue against Okoye and the elders, and he's like, these fish man, we just need to find him and kill him. And even later when you see him behave wiser, when he's like, no, let's not just go to war. I don't want to turn a war for my people. I don't want to turn a war for your people. Your mother wouldn't want that. And like the way he dove into things, absolutely killed it. Mbaku is amazing in this movie. For a moment I thought he was gonna die. Namor turns and punches him in the chest and breaks his Jabari tribe chest piece, and he flies like into the bar. I was like, oh shit. And then it looks like he had like woven vibranium shirt on or something underneath, but I was like, oh thank God. It's like, oh, he was mío. I was so scared. He was always using what I thought for a bit was a gaffy stick, but I learned it's actually hopefully I'm saying this right, a knob carry. That club is baller, and the fact that he's consistently using it I think is great. And he's I mean, we saw it in the first movie, but I like that it carries over here, and it's still made out of Jabari wood, except at the end he has like the vibranium ball at the top. I genuinely love it with like it looked like the white paw, and his armor has of course the face of the gorilla with like the trimming. And I love the fact that he's kind of this second brother to Shuri and the connection they were starting to build. So a big question at the end of the movie is Mbaku king? I definitely think so, because when he shows up to a Warrior Falls, it says I challenge for the throne, and it also seems like Shuri wants him to be king. And is he gonna just answer directly to her, or is he gonna be acting king until she decides to take over, or till baby T'Challa grows up? During that fight in Wakanda when Namor comes with his people and they start wrecking shit, I love the way they handled his flight, because it doesn't seem like anything we've seen before. He's just not flying around like your usual character. It's almost literally like he's airwalking through the whole thing, and he's like, you see him kind of look like he's running, and he's literally like crossing Wakandan planes up and moving, and you see him like skirt like with the when they zoom into the angle, and it really looked like he was using some Nike Airs and just bouncing around. I really like that. I thought someone was going to die. I was hoping it wasn't going to be these characters, but I was thinking maybe Nakia, Okoye, Mbaku, especially for a moment there. Someone along those lines, someone immediately recognizable. People love and care for the character, and you're like, oh shit, like it felt like their consequences were going to happen. Never expected Namor to take out Queen Ramonda, and she died saving Riri Williams. I thought was crazy. Caught me extremely off guard when they're having a conversation, and Riri's like, yeah, my dad just gave me tools and let me try to figure stuff out. And then she asked Shuri, how'd you learn this, or how'd you learn what you do? And she was like, my big brother. I love the fact that they confirmed that T'Challa was a genius level character, because he always is in the comics. He's as smart and smarter than Tony a lot of the times. The introduction of the Midnight Angels was interesting, because when you see it, I was like, okay, that kind of looks like that. And then she called it the Midnight Angels. Like, oh, okay, dope. That is, if you don't know, in the comics, that is a specific group for Wakanda, and they're Wakanda assassins, basically, is what they are. Where the Dora Milaje is the protectors of, Black Panther and the royal family, and they're top tier. The Midnight Angels are your ninjas, so to speak. They're your assassins, and they handle that. So it's interesting that they brought them in, bodysuit enhancements and stuff, but it was really cool to see. And then they looked pretty good. So I was definitely thinking, and I knew we were gonna get Killmonger again. I didn't know how. The one thing I didn't expect was when Shuri went to the ancestral plane, that's the one or the person who visited her. So I thought that was interesting, because it was a very clear, this is where your mindset's at. You're on this vengeance pursuit. You're being consumed by it. And I like the way they presented that until she has that moment of clarity, and her mom's like, yo. And she hit him with the show them who you are line, and I was like, damn it, like, y'all can't be doing this, because all I think about is Lion King. And James Earl Jones, I need you to be like, you're better than this. Two absolutely great moments in the movie that are not that important. They're just small details that I really love. There's one when you see the giant Wakandan sub and they're fighting on the side. There's leopard print on the side. I thought that was great. Second moment is around that is when Atuma shows up on an orca. And if you don't know, orcas are bad as fuck. They're gangster. He shows up on an orca and it tail whip launches him onto the ship, the sub. The ocean lover, aquatic lover in me was like, oh boy, that's like some real life shit. Like, it was the best version of Shamu I've ever seen in my life. I love the nod to the comics because outside of the water, the Talocans are blue. And in the comics, the Atlanteans are blue. And I generally thought when they were blue outside of the water, they were even more intimidating because they felt so otherworldly. I was like, oh, these are monsters. This is scary. This is great. I love his headdress. And of course, the symbol, we'll get into that more. But also, when everyone was doing it, I thought that was great. But I love when Namor sits there and he does it fucking huge. I thought that was my favorite. So if I ever do it to anyone, it's going to be the big version. This is cool. This is great. At the end, between Namor and Black Panther, you see them fighting. I love the fact that in the mother tongue, the Mayan dialect, he screams Imperious Rex. Again, what a call and nod to the comics. Absolutely love it. Alrighty, so picking up on Baby T'Challa. So I love that there's a future for the character T'Challa because I am very much for recasting, and I was. And I think they still could have and should have, even though I absolutely love this movie. But I say that because Baby T'Challa is a recast. When is he going to become T'Challa? When is he going to become the like actual Prince or King or Black Panther? Are we going to have a time jump? When does this take place? I'm going to say that a couple times. But when does this take place? Is it when we come to present, he's already going to be older? Or those are my questions. I'm curious on your theories. If there maybe clues in the movies I missed that may be leading to those answers, let me know down below. A separate vibranium meteor in the ocean makes sense, or maybe the larger one had a small break off ocean, makes sense. Mostly water, easily makes sense that there would be more in the ocean. However, I bring that up because I really feel like this small pieces that they might acquire throughout time and finding it in places and blah 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 is going to be the catalyst for them creating adamantium to have an equivalent because they can't get to vibranium, which of course mutants exist now. We know the X-Men are coming. How the blip, the snapping, so to speak, affected them in Talocan. Because it doesn't feel at any point Namor was snapped away. It doesn't feel like they're recovering or dealing with that at all. It also doesn't really feel like it's post Endgame, honestly. There's parts of this movie that feel like it takes place during those 5 years. I know they say it doesn't, so I have to go with that, the fact that it doesn't, especially because for the most part, it feels like it takes place after, but there's little things or mentions that make it feel like it takes place during the blip. But how did that affect? Namor was blipped away, but was he? And I feel like if he was, they wouldn't think of him as a god anymore. So that's what I'm curious. I want to understand and learn more about that explanation. Or are they going to give it to us? How are we going to lead forward with that? Also, if a simple vibranium detector caused this whole ruckus, curious to how they're going to push forward and explain that dynamic. So although this movie feels very contained in its own situation, there's a couple things at like the end. Namor very much to me feels like he's setting up or teasing Doctor Doom. And I say that because throughout the movie they talk about how Wakanda is the strongest nation on the surface. The Black Panther is the strongest warrior on the surface. They are the strongest on the surface. Strongest on the surface. They kept saying that. And at the end, it talks about how the world, and they set it up, it seems like the world is going to attack or come to destroy Wakanda and steal their resources. So they're going to ask Namor and Talocan for help. When the world attacks and stuff, Wakanda's going to hold its own. Things start getting crazy. They're going to ask Talocan and Namor for help. But the reason I think this sets up Doctor Doom is because the UN, the world, the nations are going to ask for Victor Von Doom's help. And he's going to help him because he's going to want access to vibranium. The world is going to see him as a good guy or an ally, and he's going to come off like that because that's something he does because he wants something or he's going to get something out of this deal. And I think that's how we're going to get him. I think the first time we get him is just Victor Von Doom. And the reason I say that is because David and I had talked about how in Ant-Man and the Wasp, everything was quantum this, quantum, con puro pinche quantum. And in this movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, where's Kang at? The quantum realm. And we're going into the quantum realm, and it's going to be super important. Also, with the way the movie ends, I think Atuma and Namora are going to betray Namor because the fact that she even says it like, I hate thinking about you kneeling to the Wakandans, to us losing. And he's like, no. And he goes on his rant. But that small seed makes me think Atuma and Namor are going to be like, You're not our God. You're weak. You lost to Black Panther. You lost to these surface dwellers. You're not a god. You're just a mutant. You're just nothing to us. And they're going to betray him. Thus, I mean, I'm thinking this is his own movie. Thus giving us his turn into being a hero or anti-hero, being more of that type character. I haven't talked too much about Riri Williams and Ironheart. Or let me rephrase. I haven't talked too much about Ironheart. Because Riri Williams is, I've talked about her. And she's highly involved in this movie. But her Ironheart armor that she creates in Wakanda, she doesn't get to keep. Because it's obviously made of vibranium. Makes sense. But I'm thinking her show is what leads us to Armor Wars, which is now a movie instead of a limited 4-episode series. So we know it's going to be much bigger than we expected. And at the same time, they said they're casting Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto. Interesting, but it feels so out of place to put him in that situation. Hoping it makes sense long term once we watch it. But that has me thinking her show is going to be important in leading us to Armor Wars. At the same time, she's going to recreate her own suit, causes her or Armor Wars to erupt. Because I think she's going to create tech, it's going to get stolen, and other people are going to start to try to make it. Rhodey's going to show up and be like, you did this, I need your help. We need to get all this armor back. We need to get all this tech back. We need to get the schematics, blah, blah, blah back. Because if the world has access to Iron Man suits, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be god awful getting into that situation. I think that's where it's going. Alright, my people. So, Namor, king, god, in and of the ocean. And there's not a single mention of a dead celestial in the middle of that hoe sticking out like this. Not a mention in any film to a celestial pulling up to earth and being like, you coming with me, I'll be back to ruin these people if they whack, and dipping out with some of the Eternals. That also makes me fall into pieces of this movie doesn't take place around that far after they come back from Endgame or possibly in the blip. There's certain things that just don't add up to where its placement is at. So I'm trying to figure out, of course, where it's at, because I don't think anyone really knows or anyone's announced where it's located in the Phase 4 story in the post Endgame timeline. But also, no Avengers at his funeral. Were they not allowed? Were they not invited? What was going on to the fact that they wouldn't come pay their own respects? Because if it's during the snapping, during the blip, it would make sense, because half of them are gone and the other half are dealing with the fact that people just disappeared in front of them and they're trying to figure out what the hell they're doing. They took that huge L. Of course, again, they said it doesn't take place there, so taking that off the table, I can't think of a reason other than that they weren't invited or allowed to come pay their respects during the funeral, which is a possibility. The fact that he died, so they closed off from that, because no, we don't want, this is our thing, we're suffering, we don't need a show out of it or something, which is definitely a possibility. So I'm curious to see how that gets explained. I definitely love hearing from you. I want to hear your thoughts. Why do you think the Avengers weren't there, or any of his compadres? I mean, even Bucky got saved there, so you're telling me he wouldn't show up? When do you think this takes place? Not just in Phase 4, but in the post-Endgame timeline, other than Black Widow. Everything else in Phase 4, from the shows and the other few movies, obviously we still have one more, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, but all those are supposed to take place after Endgame. I want to hear your thoughts down below. I love hearing from you. I know there's definitely a few things I probably missed. Let me know down below if there was something I missed that you thought I should have mentioned. If you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts, theories, or you have your own, let me know down below in the comment section. I love hearing from you. But until next time, stay safe, be well, y con mucho amor. Adios.